What's up, everybody? Justin here, the Maine State of Mind podcast, back for another episode. 1 week late. This is the last episode of season 3. Um, this is Bob Tkacik, who's a comic book creator, artist, writer from Maine. He has a couple different comic books out there, but he's most recently known for doing a variant cover of The Last Ronin, #1 for IDW, a comic book that's also featuring Ben Bishop, also from Maine, which is pretty cool. So talked past couple weeks about to a couple Maine artists, comic book creators. This is pretty cool to continue on with Bob here. Bob will also be at Galactic Comics and Collectibles on June 5th at 10 a.m. till about 5 or 6 p.m. signing, doing sketches, taking photos. You can buy some of his original artwork and stuff like that there. So if you're in the greater Bangor area and want to make the trip out there, Saturday, June 5th at 10 a.m., Galactic Comics, Hammond Street in Bangor. So check that out for sure. If you can't, also, again, he'll be at the Bangor Comic and Toy Con in October, the first week in October at the Bangor Mall, signing autographs and doing things like that as well as a convention. He would be doing that there. So Bob's a great guy. Talked a little bit about how he got into artwork, how he does certain things, what projects he's working on currently, and much more. So thanks everybody for season 3 of the podcast. We are now going into season 4. That will be out next week with Adam Morissette and myself. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. Like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, and visit our website at themainstateofmind.com. Really appreciate everybody. Enjoy this episode with Bob, episode number 52. Comic book creator from Maine. Thanks, everybody. How's it going, Bob?
Great, Justin. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Doing wonderful. A little tired, as you know, we've been emailing back and forth. Had a baby on about 2 weeks ago tomorrow.
Yeah, congrats.
From this recording. Thanks, man. Getting used to the sleeping schedule. It's different, but I was telling my dad this weekend that I'm 35, and I definitely feel like there's definitely been some benefits of waiting until I was 35 to have a child. But I definitely think that 20, 21, 22-year-olds are more used to staying up all night. So there is a benefit on the sleep schedule for a newborn to wait, do it earlier in your life than it is later in your life. But I'm getting used to it, I guess.
It's a fair call.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a while. I mean, I usually record these podcasts once a week, and it's been 2 weeks plus since I've recorded one. And I was itching to get back, so I was able to, if you were able to get on here and record with me, that'd be great. And so we were able to get this put together, and I'm pretty happy about
great.
that. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, are you from Maine, or are you just living in Maine?
Yeah, I grew up mostly in Maine.
Okay.
I was born in Keene, lived in Massachusetts for 6 years, but spent basically my entirety of adult life in Maine. No matter where I go to, I've come back to Maine because it just feels safe.
It's great. I mean, Maine's awesome. I think I was born in Massachusetts, born in Norburyport, and spent 10 years in Kittery. Went back to Massachusetts for 10 years, and I've been back up in Maine, up in the Bangor area for the rest of my life so far. But Maine always calls us back. Anybody who's like from Maine or spent a number of years in Maine always calls you back. So
It really does.
It's a fun. I mean, it's something for everybody, everything here. I mean, the number of artists that I'm meeting. That's the funny thing, I think, is the number of artists and comic book creators now that are like you're like, oh, they're from Maine. Is insane.
Yeah, right.
Like over the years, it's just over and over and over again. Some of these artists are getting some recognition that are actually from Maine, which is pretty badass.
Yeah, a lot of big names coming from Maine now.
And it always was there, like, there was the Kevin Eastmans and, Steve Levine for a while there, but like some of the newer artists that are coming out are pretty cool. I've talked to a couple of them so far, and I think that we'll talk to some more in the future too. But I mean, it's really cool to see artists in general coming from Maine, but the comic book artist is cool because I think that's a fun little thing that is near and dear to my heart. Is comic books. So meeting these people that are from Maine or at least reside in Maine is pretty cool.
It's got to be something in the air.
Exactly. Exactly. But you are working on a number of projects. We talked via email a little bit. You've worked on things over the years. But one thing I'd like to talk about just to start off with, just because it came out recently, is number 3 for Last Ronin.
Oh
You
yeah,
did you did a variant for number 1. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, yeah. It was
How did that come about? Like how did you get on a cover for a comic book of that magnitude right
sheer luck.
now?
Honestly, it was just something that I've always wanted to be able to contribute to in some way. Never really knew what channels to go through, but then when the book got delayed last summer, I just kind of was like, well, maybe if I make something and shop it around, people will like it, and we'll see where it goes. And yeah, I came up with a rough and sent it over to Tim at One Stop Shop, and he was like, "Hold on one second, I know some people that'd be down for this." And before I knew it, I was getting put in touch with Hand Comics and State of Comics, and they decided to pick up the cover, and I was just blown away, honestly.
It's awesome. There was what 100 plus covers or something like that for that issue, which was pretty
Um,
crazy.
yeah, I think the first print had like 75 or almost 80
Yeah,
covers, and then there was a lot of second print variants too. It was a big event. I
it's
was
kind of
very,
man.
very fortunate to be a part of it.
Exactly. And Ben and Kevin just posted yesterday too that like number 3 was the number 1 selling comic book in the world yet
Yeah.
this week too. And it's funny to see a comic book like The Last Ronin and be so successful, and it's only going to be a 5-part issue. I've always like laugh about that thing. Like you can tell like IDW and some of these places are going, crap, why wasn't this a longer series? We could make more comic books. But I'm sure something will come from the future of that comic book and stuff like that. But does that help with notoriety for you at all, or does that help with future projects? How does that work? Is it just something cool to do, to put on your resume that you've done a cover for something like that, or is that something that helps progress your career?
Kind of both. Yeah. Honestly, it was just something that personal milestone. Like I wanted to be able to do something for a franchise that has influenced me since I was like
Mhm.
6 years old. Um, but yeah, I mean the after effect of a little bit of notoriety coming through has been nice. It's helped me get more work. I just got a cover for Beyond the Breach, which will be coming out in July. um, yeah, it's very much helped my notoriety because I don't do a whole lot of public appearances because I don't travel a whole lot, especially this past year.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to have something, not just a personal milestone, but like something to really hold up that year for me because like everybody, 2020 was a ball of crap.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of that, just to touch on that too. This coming Saturday, Galactic Comics in Bangor, you'll be doing a meet and
Yeah,
greet kind of thing. It's a little different now during these times, like you had mentioned, because of COVID and so on. But it's cool to see that even before some of these restrictions were starting to get lifted and so on, that you were willing to do something to make sure that you can get out there, but do it safely. And as we talked about on the poster and things like that, masks and all that stuff. But like, it's cool that you're actually able to get out there and see some people and do some things with people who want to meet. Like I said, not just meet artists that are on comic books they like to read, but people from the area. It's pretty cool for people to see that stuff too. So Galactic Comics on Saturday, it's gonna be pretty fun and exciting. So are you bringing some things too to like sell and stuff like that as well, or?
yeah. At the moment, I don't have any Ronin covers that left to sell, but I do have some some Black
Weird, huh?
Friday, and some Good Boy Paws previews,
Mhm.
some Night is Falling covers, and I'll be open for a couple of commissions, things like that. I'll bring prints and stickers and the whole 9 yards, and just really mostly excited to get out of the house and see like-minded people and chill and just talk comics again. And it's intimidating, but it's also very relieving. So I'm very
It's
excited.
it's the small shop things are the kind of things that I always like too, because it feels so intimate. It feels so much more like you're actually meeting someone.
Yeah,
My tattoo artist Jay Cochran um, tells a
he's
story
a
about
great guy. Yeah.
when he met Stan Lee, and it was like one of the coolest things for him in his entire life was meeting Stan Lee. But like it was like shuffling through like a conveyor belt kind of thing, where it was like you'd swing in behind Stan Lee, they take a quick photo of you, and then they'd shuffle you out of the way. The next person would come in. It's like I
Oh
met
well.
Stan Lee, but like he's like, but did I really meet Stan Lee? It's like when we were younger playing in bands, and playing with artists that are like, you play this like small little generator stage,
Yeah.
playing the same show as ZZ Top or whatever. But you're like, oh, I played with ZZ Top. It's like, well, no, you played the same show as ZZ Top. You didn't play with them. Same
No,
thing.
I'm
It was like,
hoping for.
and I met Stan Lee, but really, did he meet Stan Lee? He just kind of like took a picture with him. The small mom and pop shops like Paul's shop and Galactic Comics in Bangor. That's really cool because you get to actually meet someone, have a conversation that's longer than 30 seconds if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Hear cool stories about how people know you or like your art or those kind of things. I've always appreciated those small shop experiences over the bigger con. Not that con experiences are bad, but like just in general, those small like individual events are kind of cool.
No, I totally agree. Especially getting back into doing events too. It's going to be really nice to start small. I haven't done very many large conventions, but I tend to stick to the smaller local ones. And yeah, the smaller, the more intimate the space, the more comfortable I feel.
You know, and I don't. So let's back up a little bit here too. I don't want to go too far ahead, too fast. But how did you get into artwork? How did you? So you do you call yourself an artist, a comic book creator, a writer? What do you? Everything, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I don't know. I got into art because it just kind of came naturally as a kid. My mom was an artist, and she was very encouraging, and it was something that just kind of kept going throughout my life. Coincidentally enough, I learned like character form and just general understanding of posture by like I think I was like 7 years old, like tracing old Ninja Turtles puzzles and stuff like that, and just kind of learning what a finished piece might look like when I someday have the skill to actually do this. And just like most people starting drawing, I imagine. And it just kind of kept going, and eventually about like 10 years ago I decided it'd be really nice if I could go full bore into this. And so far it's been a really great ride.
And you've launched some Kickstarter, a couple Kickstarters.
Just the one. I was part of one for a book called Summer of '74 that I illustrated in 2019, and I recently, or I guess not really recent, but time's kind of
the scale of time right now. Yeah,
almost literally a year ago. I launched a Kickstarter for my own creator-owned comic called Good Boy Paws.
Okay, and just talk a little bit about Good Boy Paws. What's that all about?
It's a story about a recently abandoned and amnesiac helper dog learning about what he is and what he was actually meant for. So the first issue of this story just kind of tells a little bit about the character himself, some of his peripheral comrades, and it's just sort of a lighthearted romp introduction to this world that I'm trying to create. I've been working on it for about 5 or 6 years, and finally last year it's just like, you know what, I'm just going to do this, and I'm just going to do issue at a time and just see where it goes.
And it's been so far, so you've been having fun doing it, I'm guessing, obviously.
Very much, yeah. Just recently got back into doing it because, again, this past year was just so insane that it was impossible to focus on anything for a good majority of the time other than just base survival. So I've recently gotten back to this project, and it's very reinvigorating. It feels really good to finally be at this point, and I can't wait to be able to bring it to completion.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And do you think that you'd like to start continuing doing like Kickstarter or creator own things, or are you like, as we're younger and every one of us who like gets into comic books or as artists and things like that, hear stories over and over again. I've talked to, a couple artists from Maine, Ben and those guys, Ben Bishop, about how sending your stuff in to art like Marvel and all these places trying to get a job. That was the way that you always used to have to do it. Like it wasn't like you could create your own comic book very easily. But you think in the future, in the long run, you just want to create your own comic books and keep going with that? Or would you like to get some sort of job with an actual issue that someone else created that you actually just did the artwork for?
I'd like to continue with a little bit of both, honestly. I'd like to continue with the creator-owned stuff because this is just the first chapter of what I'm hoping will be a 10-chapter story.
Okay.
I do want to continue with that. There are fun stories to tell. I'd like to really keep on a roll with that. As far as working for others, it all depends on the story, honestly. I don't have a particular affinity for any certain publishing house. Um, I've become a big fan of Image and IDW for their you know, ability to keep and maintain these independent properties that just turn out to be incredible,
Incredible.
that a lot of people may not have given a chance.
Mhm.
But ultimately, yeah, it just comes down to the story, and if the story speaks to me, I'd be very happy to illustrate it.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Honestly,
you
I'd
don't
love
want
to do
to
some
turn away work.
interiors for different
You're
people for sure.
you're not in the position. None of us are really in the position just to be like, nah, I'm all set. I'm going to move on from that thing. And, you know,
Right
if someone offers me life to
now.
take it.
No, I'm not gonna
um,
turn down. I'm not gonna turn down work.
yeah. So exactly. So I mean, it's. But do you see? I mean, do you think you'd have more fun doing create your own because it's your own project, or do you think it's like,
Definitely, yeah.
do you stay focused pretty easily on something that you create, or is it something that like
um, no.
it's just like
No,
that's
because
what
I'm
the
the only
answer.
one holding myself responsible for
Yes.
it. It tends to get away from me more unless I have somebody that I'm working for who's like, we need this by this time, and then I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I got that. Yeah,
That's fair. I feel
I
the same way. Yeah.
do enjoy working on my own stuff, but I am a terrible boss.
I'm exactly the same way. So I do. I work daily. My day job is for Warner Brewing Company, and I do their can labels as well
Oh,
as the
nice.
general manager there. But like, so it is one of those same things that like when they want me to create a can label for a specific beer, I'm like, it's like I can bang it out, I can get it all perfect exactly the way I want it to. But then they're like, hey, how about you create this label? And it's like 3 weeks later, they're like, how's it going? And I'm like, I'm still working on the actual basis of the idea of what I want it to look like. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, it's still tooling around in my head. I got it like sketched out on the iPad a little bit, but like I'll get to it. And they're like, oh, we need like that's being canned in a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, I should probably actually finish that label then, huh? But when they're like, this is the way we want it to look like, this is the colors we want, this is the font we want, then I'm like, okay, I can make this happen. I can tweak some
Yeah,
things here and there. But yeah, I'm definitely better with listening to someone else's deadlines than I am my own deadlines. But I
that's
do have a little bit more pride and a little bit more fun, I think, when it's your own creation from the beginning. I mean, so there is those benefits. I
yeah.
can see both sides of those things. But yeah, I'm not a very good timeline person either.
I
So
100% agree.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's fun. You know, being an artist, I can kind of relate back to your saying you doing those tracing, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles things because I think that's how I started getting back into drawing was the invention of the iPad and the ability to pull a drawing of some sorts into you know Procreate, make the opacity down a little bit so that you can draw over it on another layer and get
Yeah,
the style in and figure how you like to how that works, how a finished piece would look like, and then you can pull that off and do it on your own, and maybe even still have it behind it, so that if you get lost where you are, you can go in there and create your so you can get your own drawing down.
yeah.
Because I drew a long time ago, but then got away from it when I was doing more graphic design,
Mhm.
and now I'm trying to get back into the ease of drawing because I can do it all digitally. Like
Yeah.
it's so much better.
I am a big fan of digital illustration at this point, especially because of the lack of wasted materials.
Yes.
Like, there's one of always been one of the most restrictive elements of art is the cost of materials and the fact that they aren't infinite.
Mm-mm.
But now we have,
Yes.
digital drawing boards and apps like Procreate that just lend themselves so perfectly.
Yes. It makes it easy for artists. I mean, Procreate's free. Like that's the craziest part about it, how great a program like Procreate, or not free, but it's cheap, I should say. Sorry. It's like $10 or something like that. And
Yeah,
it's basically free for what you get out of it. Like if you think about the scale of how much it costs for what you actually get out of it, it's basically like, okay, don't buy a couple of copies that week and buy a new app. And but do you do mostly digital all the way, or do you sketch some on paper? How do you work your when you're doing your artwork? Do you do it basically all digitally or?
depends on the projects. For like covers, a lot of digital, simply in the initial design
Mhm.
process so that I can tool around with a lot of concepts. Um, I'm not the best at color. I tend to spend way too much time just getting lost in all the possibilities and variables. So there's like one detraction to the digital element. but it does help a great deal in the creation of a piece and getting it just so that I can get the angle right or the lighting right. But similarly, for covers, I'll always end up doing traditional pencils and traditional inks that I'll scan back in, and then if I'm the one coloring it, I'll spend a billion years doing it, or I'll pass it out to someone way more adept.
But I mean, I know it's cool. One of the things I see when you see some of these people use those Procreate videos to do their video, like to like put on their Instagram or something like that, like how it's so much better to make a figure or a person do the action you want them to do. Because on pencil and paper, you're like basically trying to erase and redraw it. Whereas in Procreate, you can like select the whole thing and like move the arm. And like,
Yes.
it's like, it makes it so you can actually like, oh, that guy's arm is not really where I want it to be. But if you just go, oh, now it's where I want it to be. And it took me 30 seconds, erase a little bit, edit here, and we're good. We don't have to redraw the whole thing. So I've seen that be a wicked good tool, but I can also see it like making you a worse artist in the long run because you won't, you won't take as much time to try to draw because if you make a mistake, you have to draw it again. I see some people maybe getting some like resting in their laurels a little bit using digital, but it's insane how amazing digital art can be nowadays. Though it's insane, and how you can just buy an iPad and you can have all that at your fingertips for not a lot of money.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of like surreal painting and microcosmic sort of painting, and being able to just kind of mess around with elements of that in Photoshop and things like that when I'm trying to work on a cover is just an element that I can't typically bring with a pencil and some ink. I feel way more comfortable with a can of spray paint and a lot of room to be messy.
Yeah.
But I don't have to worry about that now because I can get it on my computer and not even have to worry about whether the canvas is 100% or damaged or it's all contained. I really appreciate that.
And it's portable, and that's the other part I will say about it. Not to like to gripe on or to talk about iPads too much, but like I went on my honeymoon, or I should say mini moon. We were supposed to go to Arizona, but because of the pandemic, we were stuck in Maine. And so the owners of Warner Brewing Company own a condo out at Sugarloaf. So we went to Sugarloaf for the week in the summertime, which is really cool because not very many people go to Sugarloaf in the summertime, but it was really cool to see waterfalls and all these different things. Excuse me. But my wife and I, we sat in the stream with our feet in the water and watched the water go by and stuff like that. And I had my iPad and I was able to draw and sketch for fun, just, killing time on the iPad really quickly without having to bring like a package with pencils in it and a board and extra paper or pads or whatever. It was literally one device that I could be like, okay, I'm done drawing. I'm going to read. You just go to the next thing, or I'm done drawing. I'm going to play a game. It's like all on the same thing. And then I could put it in my backpack and go back to the condo and not have to worry about, again, paper, pencil, pens, all those things to actually do physical art. The portability of it, it's amazing. I can be anywhere and draw, which is awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate that element.
So you can get your timeline done better.
Exactly, yeah, and I have a tendency to be very distractible, especially when it's warm out. So at least now I can like set up a hammock somewhere and still get work done instead of just like, oh, it's too hot to exist. I have to go outside and forgo work.
But
now I can bring it with me.
No excuses anymore, Bob.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. But I guess the downsides of things like that is there much original artwork anymore? I mean, like, because I know some people, like I know for an example, some of the artists that I follow online, they do a lot of digital, but then they'll like put a piece of paper over the screen and they'll actually get the whole the outline of what they did on the digital, and so they can actually put it on paper and pen, so that they have an original piece of artwork. Because there are probably some of these covers of the 75 covers of the Last Ronin that were out there that probably never actually made it on paper. Probably was done mostly digital. I mean, is there when you submit a cover to say IDW for that thing, do you just submit the actual paper or do you actually submit like a PDF file?
Just the finished file.
Okay.
I'm still learning what size and what file type is preferable for printing, and it seems to depend on who's doing it. But typically you just send a compressed finished file that's got the color lines, everything nice and ready to go, and then I guess they just drop the title in and the credits around it, and it's good to go.
it's such craziness about, again, the future of how to do these things. You have to used to have like mail freaking pages into people and all that stuff. Now they can
So
do things.
terrifying.
But I mean, it's still fun. It's fascinating to me, the comic book industry and how far it's come over the years. Even since when I was younger, reading comic books to what it is now. To know that I know now and talk to multiple people on this podcast that are comic book artists or creators that make a living at it, if you say, like, they actually make some money doing it. Whereas like there's other people who over the years have been like, oh yeah, I'm a comic book artist, but I'm also a full-time lawyer, or I have to pay the bills by this whole thing. But actually having comic books that could have 75 covers because a bunch of different comic book stores want their own variants and stuff like that. It's fascinating as hell to see how this industry has come over the years.
It really is. It's grown incredibly, especially over the past 20 or 25, basically since when did Blade come out?
Yeah.
It's basically like I feel like it revamped the comic industry incredibly.
In putting it into perspective, your comic books that come out featuring a dog, it's not always have to be about superheroes either. And that's what, a lot of the really good comic books that are out there now are horror based, like you mentioned one of your titles, or my wife loves the post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
And those kind of ones. You have ones that are borderline superhero, borderline not, but it's a bunch of good titles that have come out over the past I don't know, 5 years that are non-superhero based, which people a lot of times when I mention I love comic books, they're always like, oh, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. It's like, no, there's other artwork out there that are not just superheroes. And forever will be one of my favorite comic books of all time is The Walking Dead. Not superhero based at all.
Yeah.
It's very well done, very well written, in my opinion. Artwork's great. And has nothing to do with superheroes. So, there is comic books that are not based on, action figures of superheroes or things like that. It's actually based on cool stories that you could read in a book, but are also illustrated, which is pretty badass.
Absolutely. Yeah, Walking Dead is fantastic.
To this day, I mean, when I was talking to someone the other day about my favorite artists, or sorry, my favorite writers, and I still think that Robert Kirkman on that story. There's one of the few comic books that I read again over this COVID pandemic. I read again over and over again, having the little, the graphic novels, so the trade paperbacks. That I didn't want to put down. It's like there's definitely some writers who, or say Marvel. I'll give Marvel for an example. Marvel will, have a 60 issue run, but have two writers between the whole thing. You can tell when it switched writers from one to another.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But Kirkman on that book, I don't know, like something about it. I could read straight through every issue, didn't want to put it down. It was just like, oh my gosh, I want to, even seeing the TV show multiple times and reading it already multiple times. Like, I know what the hell is going to happen, but there's something about not wanting to. So I had to stop reading it before bed because I wouldn't go to bed. I just continued reading. I was like, oh, I'm going to read the comic books that have really hard and struggled to get through. So I'm like, okay, God, I got to just go to bed. Todd McFarlane would be one of those. Todd McFarlane's one of my favorite artists of all time, but man, he cannot write. I'm sorry. I love that dude to death, but that guy, he cannot write. I cannot stand reading it. I love Spawn. I can't stand reading it.
That's fair. There are some titles that are really, really renowned for their art and some that are really renowned for their storytelling. And honestly, I really, really admire people who can do both.
It's really well.
I can play an instrument and sing at the same time. It's just like, you can write and draw really well? What?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
But I also, it's hard to do. It really is hard to do. And I don't think my wife and I were trying to talk about doing our own at some point. She has art ability, drawing ability as well as I do, but we both can write, and we thought about doing one eventually and so on. But it's like, it's one of those, it's a big undertaking to do both. But it seems like nowadays it's like you kind of are falling behind if you can't do both, if that makes any sense. Like if you can't do both, you can't create your own comic book, then you're kind of behind the horse, and you should be catching up here. Because even if you can only do it semi well, like if you can do, I can get a storyline out there, it's pretty good. Yeah, and I can do the artwork. But if you can't do one or the other, it sounds like it's a little harder to get a job right now, no matter where you are. So, well, it's not hard for anybody to get a job right now, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, so what's the horror book you had messaged me about?
Oh, yeah, I just did a cover for a book called Beyond the Breach.
Okay.
Yeah, and it comes out in July, I believe, through Aftershock Comics.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the storyline is just, it's so awesome that it seems pretty expansive. Like, I don't know how long they are planning to run the series, but it seems like it could go for a good while, and the storyline is solid. I don't want to give too much away, but it's definitely like a solid creature story. I am a huge fan of creature design in movies and comics and stuff like that. Doesn't matter what, if it's a weird creature, I'm into it. Um, and this book is full. So it's basically the story of like a rift that opens interdimensionally, and then all of a sudden human inhabitants wake up in a oddly terraformed world, and just got to figure out what the hell is going on. But the creature design is what drew me in. So I'm very happy with the cover that I came up with. I had Simon Go color it, which is really interesting experience. Haven't had anybody color anything that I've inked before. So it was really cool getting to work with somebody on like their own perspective on light play and stuff. And I love his work that he's done. So that's why I reached out to him, and holy crap, he delivered. I really can't wait to share the cover with everybody. Like, I can't show anything yet. I'm still waiting for the go ahead, but I'm very happy with how it came out.
I mean, how does that work with something like, I know like the Last Ronin thing is you knew what a turtle looked like. You knew what a Ninja Turtle looked like. You did your own version of that basically. With a book like that, do they give you some sort of idea of what this, because I mean, that's the first issue, right? So you don't know what you're supposed to do. You can't take it and completely run with it, right? You have an idea you have to stick with with what they wanted to. How does that work? Do they send you some like sketches of what it should look like, or?
Well, so what I got was like the first 10 pages or so.
Okay.
So it gives enough of the storyline, a little bit of the dialogue, and a really clear idea of what the art is going to look like. So I got a sense of, what the creatures, all of them look like in great detail. And that's what stuck out to me. I tried to focus on those on the cover, came up with a couple of roughs, and the one they picked happens to showcase a good deal of the different creatures. So again, very, very happy to just get to draw weird, crazy creature stuff.
Awesome. That's so cool, and it's cool because like it's awesome about like variant cover artists or guest artists, or if you do a flashback or something like that in a book. It's cool to see how some people's art takes it differently. Like you can definitely tell from the cover to the inside that it's a different artist. But it's on their own. You're not like completely going crazy with it. At least just your version of what it's supposed to look like. And I love that aspect when you look at the cover and you're like, oh, that was definitely done by someone else. They're both good. But this was definitely done by someone else. And you read the inside panels and you're like, that was someone else who did that one. It's one of my favorite things about variant covers now, which is a humongous thing in this world. It's the number of times where I'm like, oh, it's only 10 issues of a book came out this week. And it's like, well, why is there 35 covers out right now? And they're like, yeah, because each one of them has 3 covers. And I'm like, geez, one per store, or not one per store. Ones are only for each store. I've bought in a couple of one-stop shop ones. Definitely. I just ordered one from Schmalke's. I didn't know he did a crossover cover. Until I talked to him, I was like, I really like crossover. Crossover is the one that's been 100 covers. That's what it was. Crossover had 100 covers, variant covers. 100 issue, like that sucks for people who are completionists for sure. I need every cover of this album.
I can imagine.
Take a loan out just to get the covers, but that's pretty sweet. So, you're going to be at Paul's. We talked about that quickly. I don't want to take too much. It's Memorial Day. Bob was nice enough to come out on Memorial Day. Not that, again, there's a crazy amount of things to do. Yeah, there's a crazy amount of things to do now. I do have a baby now, but I have time to. He's sleeping right now.
Nice.
So you'll be at Paul's on Hammond Street in Bangor on Saturday. This coming Saturday, the 5th. Yes.
Yes.
5th. I think it's 10
to 5.
10 to 5. Whatever his hours are, I think you're going to be there from basically when he opens to when he closes, right around there. And you're doing that with the Bangor Comic and Toy Con. Are you coming to Bangor Comic and Toy Con in October?
Absolutely, yeah. Cool. Yep. I've got a few events scheduled for the year so far. Doing Granite Con in Manchester in the fall, and Bangor Comic and Toy also in the fall.
Yeah, October, yeah.
There's something else that I can't remember at the moment. Sorry.
It's you lost track of time again. The whole 2020
Exactly.
is throwing us all off. We don't know what's scheduling an event. That's weird.
I had a really
I've,
terrible concept of time before all of this happened, and it just exacerbated that.
it definitely did because there'd be days like when we were working from home where it was like, "What day is today?" My wife would be like, "It's Tuesday." I'm like, "I thought it was Friday. I don't know what the hell's going on right now." So yeah, it's the amount of time in 2020 into 2021 now that's been throwing us off. And for people who have a bad concept of time already, I can't imagine how how hard that would be. But yeah,
I've
so
been
on
leaving myself a
Saturday,
lot more notes.
yes, exactly. Well, digital devices, man. That's what's so good about iPads and stuff.
It's
But
true.
Saturday in Bangor, come meet Bob. Say hi, right? I mean, tell us a story about how you became an artist and
Yeah.
why you like art, why you like comic books, and so on, and get something signed. Buy some of his stuff for sure. And all if you miss him on Saturday, come to Comic Con in Bangor on October first weekend in October, and I forget always get the day of it, but it's
I
first
feel like
weekend
it's the first and second, maybe.
somewhere around there. First, second, third, first through third. I don't know. It's at the Bangor Mall, which is awesome to me.
Oh yeah.
It's the craziest thing ever that we're doing at the mall because when is the last time you ever went and hung out at the mall? Like just
That's
the
a good
idea that
question.
I don't think I've been out
It's
at the
been a while.
mall. Like the first time I was at the mall in 3 years was to talk with Jay and Will about the Comic Con. I was like, wow, this is crazy. But yeah, having the at the mall is pretty cool. And the main guests they have are like Jason Mewes and the guys from Clerks.
Yeah,
And so it's laughing. I made it laugh too because it's like, okay, mall rats guys too. Like this is all coming together pretty
it's so
well.
perfect.
But yeah, I'm glad cons are happening again. I'm glad these things I'm glad the world's getting somewhat back to normal again. But
Mm,
for nerds like myself and for artists like you and writers like you, cons is a big thing for all you. And as you
really.
can tell, some of these artists, the first time I ever met Jim Steranko in his advanced age, I was like, why are you still doing cons? It's like, dude, I don't get paid. I don't, there's no royalties anymore. There was no
Uh,
retirement. That Marvel didn't give me like, he was 1099. He was a contracted employee. So he's like, I got to work for my money now. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah.
A lot of sense. So cons not happening for a year can make sense how some of these people might have suffered financially. And so
Mm,
if you go to a Comic Con this year, definitely pick up some people's artwork. You guys all work hard. We really appreciate the hard work. Keeps us in line. We love all of us comic book fans. Keeps us wanting more for sure. When you have cool variant covers and different things coming out for sure. So you said you're bad on you don't have a website, do you?
let's see. I've got a big cartel for the
Okay,
comics
yeah.
that I do have available, and it's just tachikcomics.com/big cartel.
Okay.
And then I have a very uh, poorly updated and managed website that's nerdupcreations.wixsite.com.
And then you have
But
social
that
media.
needs
You're on
some.
Instagram. Instagram's where it's at, right? Follow your artwork,
Yeah, it's
post
pretty
your
much
artwork.
that's where I get any digital attention to. It's
Yep.
just like I don't have the capacity to promote myself
Mhm.
very well. So luckily there is something like Instagram where I can just be like, oh crap, all right, I gotta upload something. Here we go.
Done.
Yeah, people can see it. I don't have to worry about maintaining a website or
Yeah.
updating things other than just here's the thing I drew today.
It's funny how you mentioned that because it's the same thing with a lot of people. We just launched a hard seltzer at Orno Brewing Company. We launched another company called Wild Maine.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Wild Maine Hard Seltzer. And we were talking as a marketing meeting. I was like, my baby was born 2.5 weeks early. And so I wasn't ready yet. So I was working on the last week or so. I was going to put a static website together. Just has the information where you can get our stuff, link to the Instagram, all that stuff. And I didn't get around to do it. And then I was gone for a week, 10 days. We were in the hospital and so on. So I was like, I didn't get a chance to do it. And I was like, wait, why don't I just forward the website to the Instagram? Because that's going to be the most updated and most regular thing. And like, there are certain things nowadays that you don't even need a website. Like, if you
Yeah.
had a web like your big cartel, if you didn't even need to have a website, you just go to your Instagram. You're like, okay, you have, you know, there are other people who are overboard with it. Like I mentioned earlier, Ben Bishop's a little overboard with his his websites and selling stuff online. But you could always have that selling capability via link through Instagram in your bio. You can just click on the thing and buy stuff. You don't have to have a website. Not everybody has to have a
Hmm.
website, but I guess if you get more covers and more comic books to do, then you do want a better website so you can sell more stuff.
Yeah, eventually, I imagine it'll probably be something I have to take on take seriously at some point. But luckily, for now, I can kind of get by with just a big cartel and Instagram because yeah, mostly it's just like, all right, here's something I drew. Does anybody want it? And people will be like, fine.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, it works out really well.
Well, yeah, it's like I said, it's also the instant thing where it's like, here it is. We post it on Instagram. If you want it, I'll sell it to you. If you know, and it's gone when it's gone.
Yeah,
It has people forces people to buy it quicker too, actually, which is pretty cool. So,
it's
but yeah,
also
well,
more personal.
yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah,
I agree with you on that one. It is more like almost like you're selling it on Facebook Marketplace.
kind of, yeah. Like I've definitely made friends with people just through talking about setting up a commission or something,
Yeah,
and it's not something that I feel would naturally happen through an anonymous or
yeah.
removed order from a website where it's just like, all
Mhm.
right, yeah, I could like hit the contact button and send this person an email. Um, if you're gonna talk to me over Instagram Messenger or something, we're gonna get to actually chat, and I'm like, that's way cooler than a website. I feel like.
Yeah, it is, and it definitely is something I've seen with artists and creators now more regularly too, which is like that people will reach out. Like there's comic book creators or comic book people that I've reached out to over the years, and they'll have conversations back with you via Instagram Messenger or
Yeah.
Facebook Messenger, which is pretty awesome because it used to be like these mystical creatures that were in an
Yeah.
office and somewhere in New York City who created your comic books. Now they're all like in your backyard and you can talk to them online.
Yeah, very accessible.
Yes. And you'll get to accessibleness is going to be even higher when you go to Galactic Comics on Saturday and
Yeah.
meet people and hang out and stuff like that. So if you're going to be in the area or you want to reach out to Bob online if you're going to be there. If you have any questions or he's going to bring some stuff. So buy some stuff from him. But if you already own some things from Bob, bring those in.
Yeah, bring them out, sign them too.
Sign up for him, take a photos, whatever.
Oh yeah,
Um,
signatures are always free.
Yes. See, there you go. That was my favorite thing when I met George Perez. I think I paid like $40 for him to sketch Thanos for me. This is gonna be
Oh,
7 or 8 years ago. And he signed whatever comic books you brought with you. It's basically like if you bought one
yeah.
thing from his thing, obviously you had a minimum guarantee to make and all that stuff there. But he's like, yeah, $40 for the sketch. He took a photo with me, the sketch, and signed like 10 comic books for me um, for all that same thing. It was like, so that's my favorite.
Oh,
Is when you
yeah.
have a couple of days, like buy one thing and I'll sign whatever kind of thing. So, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, again, Comic Cons, man, it's where you get to have
Yes.
the
Oh,
cool, fun
just
stuff. Like it's just meeting people and getting to know your idols and the people you look up to is pretty cool, for sure. But yeah, cool. I mean, I had fun talking and learning a little bit more about you. We'll have to get you back on too. I want to do an episode one time with like a bunch of different artists from Maine,
yeah.
talking and just doing a couple of cool things. I've talked to Schmalky, I talked to you, and I talked to Ben before,
Oh
Ben
yeah.
Bishop. So that'd be really cool to get you guys all on and talk about just being artists in Maine and doing those cool things. Like keep making me happy with seeing different variant covers and stuff like that. So, but yeah, check out Bob on Instagram. Of course, see him on Saturday at Galactic Comics in Bangor, or if you're not going to be able to round in Bangor, he'll be at Bangor Comic Con in October. If you're in Southern Maine or New Hampshire area, it's at Granite Con is also happening down there as well. Or just reach out to him on Instagram. Maybe he'll set up a commission,
Yeah.
artwork for him without having to meet him, without having to meet you. But I really appreciate you coming on, man. Is there anything else you want to promote or talk about?
uh, Not that I
No?
can think of off the top of my head. The Beyond the Breach cover will be out in
Yep.
July. Keep an eye
There
out
you
for
go.
that. Good Boy Paws is getting completed. It did take a little bit of extra time than I initially planned, but it is going to be completed and hopefully ready by the end of summer.
So you did a Kickstarter for Good Boy Paws or no?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so, sorry, I lost track of something there. We have issues available as well for people who didn't join the Kickstarter, or only for people who had the Kickstarter.
I will have issues available once it's printed up because
Okay.
the Kickstarter was to get enough to obviously sate the backers, but
Yep.
also to have plenty extra to bring to conventions and
Okay,
bring to
cool.
shops and maybe send to some publishing houses or whatnot. But yeah, there'll be plenty of copies of issue 1, and actually I'll have a few of the remaining handmade preview copies available on the 5th.
Nice.
They are roughs.
But I was like that because it's one of those things that I've found out about artists or found out about people or things post Kickstarter,
Mhm.
after their Kickstarter ended and closed, and I wasn't able to support or back them. And I'm always like, sometimes I've heard people like, oh, it was only for Kickstarter. We have a couple of like these other things that we can do. And I'm just like, well, I kind of missed out on the original thing and it made me sad. So having the ability to buy one afterwards is always a good thing after Kickstarter closes. So I'm excited to do that too. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Sweet, man. Thank you for coming on. And I'll
Yeah.
hopefully be able to see you on Saturday. I'm going to hopefully swing by there on Saturday. It's right down the street from me. And that's where I get my comic book. So we'll have to say hi and
That'd be great.
And all that stuff. So really appreciate you coming on, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. You too, Justin.
Yeah.